I forgot to say something before about the Kamala Harris most likely win. I think it's in the bag. But I'm thinking that the reason that this might have happened, the other day I was talking about the person that should win, whether it would be Biden, well, Harris, or Trump, would be the one that caused the most amount of upset as far as energy to feed on, negative energy to feed on, you know. But the more I think about that, even though Trump supporters aren't as insane as, the really devout Trump supporters aren't as insane as the really devout neoliberal supporters, therefore they wouldn't create as much negative energy when they lost. I think when you look at energy overall, okay, one is Trump had an anti-war rhetoric, right? That's what made Tulsi Gabbard basically go into complete obscurity and not to be allowed to be shown on CNN, MSNBC, or any of the major networks, because as soon as one is when she spanked Kamala Harris's ass and pointed out the things that she'd done in her state to incarcerate people, especially black people, not like her because she's Indian. And the other thing was the fact that Kamala Harris is not just a super cop, so she's going to be a friend to the prison industrial complex, but also the military industrial complex, because she's a total lobbyist whore, right? Like Biden is. Biden actually used the words prostitute myself out. That's what he used the words years ago when he was talking. He's probably only in his 30s when he said that. You have to go back to in the past when they weren't so guarded and we were living in different times to see the true Biden. But the true Biden doesn't matter anymore because his brain is gone. So, besides the Trump screwing himself up, when I say screwing himself up, he has the support of a lot of people. But he lost him. Well, he already had the deep state lost because they were trying to, FBI were trying to frame him. They held on to things like the Hunter Biden laptop and, the sort of stuff that would have destroyed the campaign on the other side. They basically, they meddled in they don't only, the CIA and the NSA and others don't only meddle in the whole world affairs in every single nation on earth, as they found out by the leak a few years ago when Germany was really angry at the US, and so was the UK and many other countries, when they found out, the discoveries made by people around the world because of Edward Snowden. So the whole world knows that basically America meddles in every country, and then has the audacity to talk about being meddled in by Russia and exaggerating that meddling, because every country probably would be trying to meddle in America. Because if you think about, it's quite relevant who gets in if you're a country like Iran, for example, because it can be a difference between being wiped off the face of the map for doing nothing, or being allowed to remain to survive, just by who's in power. But ultimately, the same agenda gets pushed forward, as I said in the previous episode, two episodes ago. So I think his biggest issue was because he was quite vocal about pulling people out of war. And you know that next to Wall Street, the most powerful lobbyists in America are the military industrial complex, with the Raytheon and DuPont and whoever else, Boeing, even though that's a French company. They still have lobbyists, they still write the laws, and the politicians basically say whether those laws will go forward. That's how it works, right? So, by doing that, Trump shot himself in the foot, because if there is any ability to rig the elections, we know the machines have been rigged in a lot of states, for example, in previous elections, and those same machines are still being used. We know that this is in court, by the way. There's a court case that was a few years ago, and it was showing one of the programmers of these systems who was actually effectively whistleblowing straight in court about programming these machines to allow flipping. Just a flip of a switch, boom, they can flip the vote from a 40% loss to a 60% win. So there's that. He's basically had them every unelected institute, the permanent government that's unelected. That's the real government, really. The rest of them, the elected side is the puppet government, right? And the elected side is also contrived and fiddled with, just like it is in every other country. Manipulated by media, but also in most cases, manipulated by basically systems that are designed to to allow manipulation. Simple as that. And I think one of the few in the world, it's funny enough, that one of the only ones in the world that can't allow that is the system in Venezuela. That because it does electronic and it prints, you get two copies of it, and they're what's it called? The records are collated, so you can't actually rig that one. Although people like Hillary Clinton would like to say that you can, and the puppet person, what was it? Juan Guaido, how they tried to install there. Similar situation to what happened in Bolivia recently. So yeah, I think the last thing I haven't mentioned, my finger that I cut yesterday on a lamb bone. The thing I haven't mentioned is about the energy side of things. Is if you imagine Kamala Harris will do anything when she gets in power next January or whatever it is, because I can't imagine Biden's, unless they keep on feeding him whatever it is they're giving him, because they're giving him something, because he was really clear for about 1 hour in the last two debates. When I say really clear, he was much better than he's been the last year. So that's probably going to rapidly deteriorate his situation as well, the fact that he's been taking these drugs just to appear normal. So I think that it'll probably be announced before he gets inaugurated that she will be the one who's taking control. And the thing that's funny about that is because she was probably next to Amy Klobuchar, and even Pete Buttigieg had a big following. So I'd say that next to Amy Klobuchar, she was probably the least popular candidate of everyone there. I'm trying to think of someone who was more unpopular. Yeah, because Elizabeth Warren, everyone, Bernie Sanders, of course, the most popular, who they ousted. Let's face it, he tried to shield that he was a socialist for years, to say he was a social democrat, which is a different thing. But he's not, and he's not a socialist either. He's actually a crony socialist. So well done to those that still follow Sanders and are stuckered like I used to be by him. And even Tulsi Gabbard to a degree, because the reality is, okay, maybe she's using the party to get to where she wants, but she must know, as soon as she said that she's anti-war, the DNC will do everything to block her. She will never ever reach the top of the DNC, even though she is. If you were to have a one-to-one camera session, between each candidate and the nation, so that everyone had to learn about every candidate, Tulsi Gabbard would end up being the most popular, possibly the most popular politician America's ever had. But she will never ever be allowed to get to that level because how corrupt the DNC and the GOP are. She could switch sides and be GOP and still not get there, unless it was the only way they could claw back power from the Democrats. So the last thing is the amount of suffering that will happen as a result of the wars that Kamala Harris will drag America into. That balances that kind of equation I was talking about the other day. It depends which one produces more negative energy. Of course, with Trump talking about pulling out of all these wars, you're talking about millions of lives that aren't. You think about all the suffering, all the people who are not just dying. And agonizing death, but all the people who are in hospitals, all the people that lose their families, all the children without parents that can be trafficked around the world. You think about the collective negative energy from all that, and I'm surprised I didn't see it before. So that's what's probably going to happen now. I'd say the results aren't really in yet, but I'd say that she's a shoo-in. And we have some really dark days ahead if that's the case. People thought it was bad with Trump. See, this is the thing. I still don't believe Trump was really a choice. I still think he was, he's an actor for the system, this actor-based reality that we live in. And what they're doing is giving us something worse all the time. It's always a choice, like South Park said. It's always a choice between a douchebag and a turd sandwich, right? Very true words. Because if you imagine if she stays in power for the next 8 years, because that's likely, because the Democrats are better at rigging than what the Republicans are. Republicans are slightly better at gerrymandering, rigging by gerrymandering, right? But the Democrats have always been better at rigging elections via propaganda, flipping the truth back. I mean, they've basically changed history to make it seem like they're the ones that ended slavery when it was actually the Republicans. So, figure that one out. And besides a lot of the other things, when it comes to race relations over the years, it has always seemed, probably because a lot of the southern states, that southern drawl you hear by a lot of Republicans, that probably gets associated with the Republican Party. But the reality is it's the Democrat Party that has created a lot of installed a lot of racist policies in America over the years, and probably had, well, I'd say by far, had the worst effect on black people in that country. Yet the lower IQ black people, not all lower IQ, but the masses that tend to be lower IQ and ruled by emotion do tend to follow Democrats, because they don't know their history and they haven't bothered to look into it. They just they're fed by media. So if you imagine in 8 years' time, what will happen is to claw back. They might either choose someone legitimately good like Tulsi Gabbard if she flips and changes to the Republican side to actually in order to get a vote, but she could just be a shill as well. I mean, she did kind of betray her base by backing Joe Biden. Then again, not like Sanders gave her any option because he pulled out the political cuck that he is. So yeah, that's the face of it, what we have right now. So I'm just imagining that either someone like Tulsi Gabbard flips, or Thomas Massey, he's another good guy in the Republican side who could take the forefront if the Republican Party somehow gets infiltrated by the powers of good. You know what I mean? But I think both parties will remain evil, and what you'll probably see in a few years' time is they'll have a situation where Kamala does such horrendous crimes against humanity that even people in the Democrats will want to be rid of her. This started to happen near the end of Obama's term, once a lot of black people woke up to the fact that, hang on, this guy's black, but he's not doing anything for us. Well, the same kind of thing will happen. And, it's not about her being Indian. It doesn't matter where she's from. It doesn't matter the fact that she's a woman. It's the fact that she is someone who is, well, I don't know if you watch the channel. I can't remember what it's called. There's a channel that does body language analysis. So it analyzes people when they talk. Does it to everyone. Does it to Trump. Does it to right wingers, left wingers, people from all sorts of backgrounds. And the lady describes the facial expressions, the response that people give, and she gives a psychiatric basically breakdown on the person based upon the responses. It's quite interesting. And Kamala Harris is one a couple of months back. She basically said to her, the smiling thing, which is smiling, she said, this is not just sociopathic behavior. This is, you can see the sadism in it. She was showing some parts of the response. They pause the video and they show certain things. Very, very interesting. But to someone who can read people pretty well, not surprising one bit, the analysis this lady gave. So you're going to have a sadistic sociopath at the helm for 4 to most likely 8 years, and after that, to wrestle power, it's going to be the same situation again. Well, hey, look, I know you don't like this person. It's not about that. It's about getting Kamala Harris out of the White House. The same shit they did this time. It's not. Look, it doesn't matter if you don't like Biden. He's a senile old man and she's a sociopath. It's about getting Trump out of the White House, and this will lead to just continual. Both parties will never change. And these people that expect that, look, just vote this time, then we can sort the problems out. This is what they said in 2016. They said it in 2012. They said it in 2008. They always say this. We'll sort the problem out. Look, just forget about third parties, even though they're more popular. The Greens Party and Libertarians together are more popular than the bloody Democrats or Republicans. And so these independent parties, they never end up on the ballot. So you can't choose them, even though they're more popular. So this is another scam of the system. 2 corporations, the Democratic National Convention Committee, and the GOP, the good old party, or the RNC, you can also call it. They are 2 corporations that are effectively a corporate duopoly that owns America. They have the pretense of owning America, because the reality is they don't run shit. What's really controlled is the people who are unelected in the NSA, CIA, FBI, and all these other unelected positions, just like every other country. You go around, you go around government in France, I'm pretty sure you'll find the same thing. There's people who are in jobs who are not elected, they've been there for 30, 40 years. You go to Germany, you'll find the same thing. You go around Africa, you'll find the same. It doesn't matter where you go, there's no difference. The difference in American politics is they will wage war and they will destroy other countries. The countries they talk about, like North Korea and Iran, haven't done that. They haven't waged war on anyone. They accuse them of doing it all the time. They accuse them of, being a threat to the world. But there's only one country in the world that let off 2 nuclear bombs when they didn't even have to. That's America. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. There, we've got a hellscape to look forward to, I think. But let's hope for the best. It probably won't affect people who are well prepared. It'll mostly affect the sheep. They're the ones who allow this all to happen anyway. So it's kind of the old saying, you get the government you deserve. I think is quite appropriate. It was appropriate last time. It was appropriate the times before. It will still remain that way for the rest of eternity, I think.